Hi, Gooby here.
Yo, what's up, everybody? We're gonna start for tomorrow's examination, which is again like not big of a deal, I suppose. It's 5:30 free, and yeah, let's see what we got. Like, what can be done? What can we do? Can we do? What can be done for this examination? So we can do electronic in 3D printing. 3D printing? Okay, whatever. Basically, feel a little over.
Hello,
Open up this video. Feel a little over, and then again. Social vibes. Don't talk.
Spotlight shine bright all on me. Got the internet turn like who is
हेलो पीपल। सो आप लोग आ चुके हैं आइडिया सीरीज के दूसरे एपिसोड में। ठीक है। तो इस सीरीज में हम लोग क्या कर रहे होते हैं ना कि द एंटायर पॉइंट इज ऐसे प्रॉब्लम, जैसे ये वाला एक प्रॉब्लम है। ठीक है, तो दिस इज फ्रॉम कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर्स। तो कोई भी ऐसा प्रॉब्लम या कोई भी ऐसे आइडियाज जो कि बहुत यूनिक होते हैं, ठीक है, बहुत रेयरली मिलेंगे आपको और बहुत अच्छे होते हैं, लाइक फॉर वेरी गुड फॉर एडवांस एंड गुड प्रॉब्लम्स ऑफ एडवांस फॉर मेंस। ठीक है, और एडवांस के तो बेस्ट है। उसके अलावा जो प्रॉब्लम्स मैं कुछ इस तरीके की लेता हूँ जानबूझ के, जिनमें खास करके लिए ये बहुत चलता है कि इसमें तो बहुत कुछ आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स थिंकिंग चाहिए होती है ना, कि ये सब तो आपको बेटा पहले एक बार टीचर को कराना पड़ेगा, फिर जब बच्चा इसको देख लेगा तभी वो सोच पाएगा। तो ये सब पागलपंती है, ठीक है, ये सब मिथ है। ठीक है, ये ज़्यादातर वो लोग बोलते हैं जो जिन्होंने कभी क्वेश्चन सॉल्विंग करी नहीं होती है, जो सॉल्यूशन दे दे के पढ़ाते हैं। ठीक है, तो ये पूरी जो सीरीज़ बनाई गई है ये इसी बिलीफ को, है ना, इसी ये जो धारणा है इसको इसको खंडित करने के लिए बनाई गई है ये पूरी सीरीज़। ठीक है, तो इसके और भी एपिसोड्स हैं, बहुत अच्छे अच्छे एपिसोड्स हैं, यू शुड डेफिनेटली ट्राई आउट। और इसी का जो लॉन्ग फॉर्म है ना, जैसे ये तो ज़्यादातर 15 20 30 मिनट तक जाता है, इसी का लॉन्ग फॉर्म मैं बनाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ। ठीक है, तो उसका मैंने नाम रखा है जेई एडवांस दी एंथोलॉजी। तो उसका क्या मतलब है कि बेसिकली उसमें क्या कर रहे होंगे, जैसे कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर का मैं कर चुका हूँ, आई थिंक सो अराउंड 6.5 घंटे का था वो, 4 घंटे का एक सेशन था और एक 2.5 घंटे का था। तो उसमें हम क्या कर रहे हैं कि उसमें मैं बहुत सेलेक्टेड प्रॉब्लम्स लाता हूँ, और वो हर एक वो प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, डोंट टेक इट कि अच्छा हाँ क्वेश्चन ही तो बना रहे हो, नहीं, वो हर एक क्वेश्चन में एक एक आइडिया है, और वो हर एक आइडिया पे तुम्हें 20 20 30 क्वेश्चन अपनी शीट के अंदर दिख जाएंगे, अगर अच्छी शीट होगी तो ही दिखेंगे। ठीक है, फिर दूसरी प्रॉब्लम में फिर तुम्हें 20 क्वेश्चन, तीसरी प्रॉब्लम 30 20 क्वेश्चन। तो अगर कोई वो प्रॉब्लम्स कर लेता है तो द पर्सन इज कवरिंग ऑलमोस्ट ऑल मेजर आइडियाज, और बहुत अच्छे आइडियाज इन कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर। तो ऐसे करके आए मैं धीरे धीरे, इसमें टाइम लगता है बहुत ज़्यादा, तो धीरे धीरे करके आई विल बिल्ड फॉर एंटायर, है ना, कि मेजोरिटी चैप्टर्स के आई विल ट्राई। ठीक है, कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर का इवन ट्राई, उसका भी मैं डिस्क्रिप्शन में लिंक डाल दूंगा। ठीक है, वो भी अन अकेडमी एटम्स जो चैनल है ना, उस पर मैं लाइव लेता हूँ वो सेशंस। ठीक है, तो वो ऐसा समझ लो जैसे ये जो आइडिया सीरीज चल रही है उसी का एक्सटेंडेड वर्जन है वो। तो एंथोलॉजी का मतलब होता है सेलेक्टेड प्रॉब्लम्स, और उनका नाम होता है हाउ टू थिंक, कि हाउ टू थिंक इन कॉम्प्लेक्स नंबर्स, कि सेलेक्टेड प्रॉब्लम्स लेनी और उसमें भी सोचना सिखा रहे हैं, है ना, कि हर एक स्टेप, एवरी सिंगल स्टेप का थॉट प्रोसेस, कि ये कैसे सोचा, तुम कैसे सोचोगे, है ना, वही तो मेन होता है ना सर, सॉल्यूशन।
Unless my style of developing maths from elementary counting developed, these are originally calculated, couldn't open go. I could go and I feel that they still to understand my almost everything involved with maths. I think I got basically. It doesn't contain the J syllabus. Right, so anyway, just pointless. Crack just 10 questions. What? यही सब करा दो भाई.
तो ई की बार आयोटा थीटा है।
देखो, okay, never mind. I'm already feeling very overwhelmed by this. So I just want to basically stop.
I will be explaining the entire history of math, and it is quite a lot, to be honest. I did a lot of research, and this is also my first video, so if you subscribed it would be nice. So get comfortable, relax, and enjoy. Picture this. It's around 35,000 years ago. You're in the Lubumbo Mountains, which is in modern-day
So I'm gonna watch this video. This is the kind of video that I would want to watch in my Data channel as well, because this also you should do all this about anthropology and stuff like that. So I'm gonna basically what I'm gonna do is basically open this other channel. I'm gonna search the same video in this channel, and then I put it in the list.
Start an online fashion business from home. It doesn't matter if you do not have.
So, today I will be explaining the entire history of math. And it is quite a lot, to be honest. I did a lot of research, and this is also my first video. So, if you subscribed, it would be nice. So, get comfortable, relax, and enjoy. Picture this. It's around 35,000 years ago. You're in the Lubumbo Mountains, which is in modern-day Swaziland. Someone takes a baboon bone and starts making notches on it. 29 notches to be exact. This thing,
After that is, I think I should rather study it from my course instead of all of this. I say it all the time, but then I don't really study. Okay, never mind. I'm attaching a lot of feeling, and that's the first rule. There was some rule, but yeah, whatever. Alright, so we're gonna basically start off with the metal forming basics and temperature. The classification by temperature, metal forming perform radius station under 0.3 degree temperature. Better accuracy, tolerance, better surface finishing. Strain hardening increases strength. Bonds में higher force is required. Ductility decreases. Warm working ये है 0.5. Hot working performed above recrystallization temperature 0.5 to 0.75. Lower forces required. Significant shape change possible. No strain hardening. Whatever. Material behavior and forces. Low stress to low stress to deform metal used deform metal. To deform metal, you must overcome its yield strength. In the plastic region, stress increases and strain decreases. Stress increases and as strain increases. Low curve equation. Low curve equation sigma is equal to Ke to the power n. Rolling the theory and formula. Wait, I should open it. I assume I should open up. I think I keep the OBS open, but I open up this part so that I can know as to what it is and where I'm at this part. Metal behavior. Rolling के बारे में बात करना है. Rolling में बहुत सारी चीजें हैं. I think we are all a part of it. Rolling wheel configurations. Graph, traction graph. Rolling wheel configurations. Step 1. Rolling force. Forging theory and formula. So I think I'll start off with metal forming processes. फॉर्मिंग करने से अच्छा है।
Vibe Coding 101 Part 3. Stop typing your prompts. Seriously. Your prompting.
The world's output of metal is more than 350 million tons a year. Almost all of it goes through a forming process. Metal forming means pressing, squeezing, or rolling metal into shape, as opposed to machining it. Forming depends on a basic property of metals, plasticity, the ability to change shape under pressure. By forming, ingots are changed into usable shapes. At the same time, the internal structure of the metal is altered. The rim of the ingot on the left of the micrograph is made up of long columnar crystals, in contrast to those further towards the metal is altered. The rim of the ingot on the left of the micrograph is made up of long columnar crystals, in contrast to those further towards the center. Metal with this kind of structure tends to be brittle. During forming, the structure will become finer and more uniform. The most important of all the metal forming processes is hot rolling. This is a slabbing mill. It feeds a series of mill stands extending over 1/5 of a mile, which produce wide steel strip. The slabbing mill reduces these 14-ton ingots into slabs about 8 inches thick. As the rolls bite into the steel, the crystals are all the time breaking down and forming again, making the metal tougher and more resistant to failure. The slabbing mill is operated from a control room, the pulpit perched astride the rolling line. The mill is in continuous operation day and night. The chief operator and his assistants work 8-hour shifts. The operator gauges the thickness of the slab to a fraction of an inch. He sets the bite made by the work rolls. His controls direct the rams which manipulate 7,000 tons of steel every day. Edging passes reduce the slab to its proper width. To allow the slab to pass through, the top roll is raised to nearly its full height. The two rolls give this mill its name, a two-high reversing mill. Controls direct the rams which manipulate 7,000 tons of steel every day. Edging passes reduce the slab to its proper width. To allow the slab to pass through, the top roll is raised to nearly its full height. The two rolls give this mill its name, a two-high reversing mill.
Your company is quietly pushing you out and you know it. Now at 40 and above,
When the ingot has been rolled down to a slab 8 inches thick, it is sent to the shears. The shears crop the slab into the correct lengths for the roughing mill, a group of 4 high mill stands in series. The slab is now under an inch thick and is ready for rolling into strip. The 6-stand finishing mill does this. As the strip passes each stand, it gets thinner. It leaves the mill at 2,000 feet per minute, over 20 miles per hour. The strip hurtles down the runout table, cooled by jets of water as it goes. At the end of the table, it is wound on a coiler. While one end is coiling, 400 feet away, the other end is still being reduced. Rolling has given the strip a fine, regular grain structure. Its properties are better balanced. It is tougher now and more ductile. Such hot-rolled strip has many uses. For example, steel pipe or household gas and water is made from it. Here it is being reheated in a tunnel furnace. When it leaves the furnace, the strip is bent into a tube by forming rolls. Further rolls press the edges of the tube tightly together for butt welding. The tube tube is cut into lengths by a flying saw, and the sections shoot away to a cooling rack. As with steel, most non-ferrous metals are hot rolled. This is a slab of copper, just off red heat, and covered with a thin layer of scale. The slab passes between the bottom and middle rolls. And comes back between the middle and top. Because of its 3 rolls, this is called a 3-high mill. As a rule, hot working does not need lubricants because the metal scale prevents sticking. The work rolls are cooled by water.
Namaskar, my name is Manoj Dhanda. I'm founder of utho.com, India's first cloud platform. हम जानते हैं डिजिटल भारत के लिए क्लाउड
After the hot rolling, metals often undergo another rolling process. This time, cold. In cold rolling, lubricants are very important. Lubricants are used to reduce friction. They increase the reduction that can be made on each pass. They carry away some of the heat produced and improve the surface finish. In all metal forming processes, the loading on bearings and gears is very heavy. Lubrication is critical. Rolling mills are generally lubricated by oil circulating in a large system complete with coolers, filters, and storage tanks. A high proportion of steel strip is also cold rolled, using a dilute oil emulsion. Here, strip from the hot mill is passing forward through 3 mill stands in succession to be reduced to a 1/30th of an inch, a common thickness for car bodies. After cold rolling, strip has an extremely good surface finish. But the regular grain structure it acquired in hot working has disappeared. The grains have been lengthened in the direction of rolling. The metal has become harder and stronger, but less ductile. Sometimes this is satisfactory, but sometimes the softness and ductility must be restored. This is done by annealing. In one process, the metal is heated inside a container filled with an inert gas to prevent oxidation. This is known as bright annealing. Here the heating is done by gas or oil, and the whole process lasts for several hours. Sometimes the softness and ductility must be restored. This is done by annealing. In one process, the metal is heated inside a container filled with an inert gas to prevent oxidation. This is known as bright annealing. Here the heating is done by gas or oil, and the whole process lasts for several hours. Annealing recrystallizes the metal and restores its regular grain structure. Cold rolling followed by bright annealing gives much the same result as hot rolling, but with a better surface finish. After annealing, the strip can be worked more easily and is less liable to crack. In this tube mill, an oil emulsion lubricates and cools the strip as it is formed up into a tube.
क्या कहाँ पे बैठा था वो?
वहीं खड़ा है। मेरा रास्ता कर।
हेलो, याद है यशराज? अभी उठा। हाँ, वो समझ गया। गुड मॉर्निंग भाई। कैसे हो, ठीक हो? ये तुमको चाहिए तो मैं भेज देता हूँ।
क्या मेरे पास है?
ये है ना कि क्या क्या उसने मार्क करवाया है बेसिकली। ये जो येलो में मैंने मार्क किया इस बेसिकली उस दिन आगे जो उसने बताया ना इम्पोर्टेंट, वो है ये सब। मटेरियल तो भेज रखा है वो ऑलरेडी उसके ग्रुप में।
ठीक है, ज्यादा कुछ नहीं पढ़ना।
हाँ
रोलिंग फोल्डिंग पढ़ लेंगे, फ्यूजन वेल्डिंग पढ़ लेंगे, लेजर तो आएगा ही बोला था।
लेजर तुझे वही बोला ना, ये सब आएगा। ये हीट बैलेंस
सब
लौड़ा
पढ़ रखे हैं
लेसन
ऑलरेडी।
ये सब नहीं आएगा, ये जो भी है
हीट बैलेंस
ये सब नहीं आएगा। एक्सट्रूजन कंफर्म आएगा, वो एक्सट्रूजन एक ही टॉपिक बचा है
अभी
वैसे।
जितना टाइम बचा उसमें हो जाएगा
क्या?
तैयारी।
हाँ हो जाएगा, बहुत टाइम बचा है।
चलो सुबह
नहीं नहीं अभी नहीं, ठीक है अभी रात को जाएंगे।
रात को।
हाँ मैं एक टॉपिक करने दो मुझे, मैं ये रोलिंग और फोर्जिंग कर लूंगा तो फिर चलेंगे। बट तुम उस टाइम पे अगर तुम उस पढ़ने के मूड में चले जाओगे तो फिर बाद में जाएंगे, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
नहीं, देखो पढ़ने का मूड तो तब होता है जब पढ़ना।
अरे कुछ नहीं होता बे, एक कोई ये वीडियो देख ले, थोड़ा सा मजा आ रहा है मेरे को भी।
ड्रामा ऑफ मेटल, ड्रामा।
हाँ मतलब कि 1950s का कोई इंडस्ट्रियल फिल्म है ये, शेल ने प्रोड्यूस किया है ये वाला फिल्म। फिल्म तो क्या ही है, मतलब ये एजुकेशनल फिल्म है। ये क्या करते हैं ना, इंडस्ट्रियल फिल्म देरी को, ये क्या करते हैं ना, अपने वर्कर्स को दिखाते हैं, जो लोग नए नए एम्प्लॉय होते हैं ना, उनको एक प्रेजेंटेशन के तौर पे दिखाते हैं। और उस टाइम पे जब इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन चल भी रहा था ना, तो ऐसे फिल्में बहुत बन रही थी। वो जैसे देखिए एक और फिल्म है, और ये बहुत पूरा बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज बनाती है अपने खुद के आर्काइव के लिए, कि उनका जो इंडस्ट्रियल पूरा जो सेटअप है उसका एक आर्काइवल रिकॉर्ड हो जाए उनके पास। और दूसरा जो उनके वर्कर्स होंगे और जो भी प्रेजेंटेशंस करेंगे उनमें थोड़ा सा वो करने के लिए, फ्लेक्स करने के लिए, इसलिए ये सब पिक्चर बनाते हैं। जैसे देखो ये सब देखो, ड्रामा ऑफ स्टील हो गया, ये जब ये देखो आर्काइवल फुटेज, तो ये सबसे तुमको थोड़ा वो मजा बोर नहीं मारेगा। मेरे को बहुत बोर मारा था ये सब देख के, क्या है ये सब, बट टाइम पास हो जाएगा करके। रोलिंग और फोर्जिंग कर दूं फिर उसके बाद चले जाएंगे, मैं आऊँगा तुम्हारे रूम में, ताकि मैं ये तो बैटल फार्मिंग तो क्या ही है चीज़ें।
The edges of the tube are welded between rotating copper electrodes.
Most people think promotions come from pleasing the boss, but that's not true.
ऐड खा जाता है बैठ, अच्छा करता है।
Rolling, a continuous process, produces material in bulk. Forging, old as the blacksmith trade, remains unsurpassed for making individual parts, especially those of intricate shape or great size. By hammer or press, an almost finished article can be made directly from red-hot ingot or billet. This 170-ton mass of steel is to be forged into a turbo generator shaft. The 7,000-ton press squeezes the metal as much as 8 inches at a stroke.
ओपेरा चल रहा है।
A skilled forge master can work even such enormous masses as this remarkably accurately. Though, of course, a good deal of machining will still be necessary. forging, used for small parts, can reduce machining to a minimum. The billet is placed between shaped dies.
Mother.
One on the anvil. The billet is placed between shaped dies.
Easy है भाई.
One on the anvil. And one above on the hammer. The impact of the upper die causes the metal to flow in such a way that its grain follows the shape of the die. This gives the workpiece great toughness. After the roughing out, the crankshaft is put between finishing dies. Sawdust helps to prevent the metal sticking. When the flash has been cut off, the crankshaft will require very little machining. Fine and regular grain structure is an important asset of forgings. The forging of railway car wheels has been greatly speeded up in recent years by linking many forming processes into a continuous sequence. After rough forging, the wheel needs a period of reheating before it is taken to be rolled out to its final diameter. The dishing press forces the hub up
उसी से अटैच कर
to
दिया.
give the wheel extra rigidity.
रेल का पहिया है ना ये? ऐसे दिखता है रेल का पहिया. Railway car wheels. छुड़ा रहा उसको निकाल.
Forging from a solid billet is also used to make the very best seamless tube, such as that used for oil drill pipe and high-pressure steam. In rotary forging, the two forging rolls are slightly inclined towards one another to break open the center of the ingot, which flows over the piercer held on a mandrel. A cool piercer point is used for each ingot. The piercer produces a thick-walled tube of medium length. This has to be elongated and its wall thickness reduced. This is done in the plug mill.
Sign language में तो मैं देख रहा हूँ.
The thick-walled tube from the piercer is elongated by squeezing over a plug between the rolls. Much hot-formed tube is subsequently cold-drawn. And here, lubrication again becomes essential. This machine draws over 400,000 feet of seamless tube a day.
Men. दोनों ने एक ही चीज देखा.
ठीक है आते हैं उन्हें.
मन कर गया क्या देख के.
And carry away the heat generated by the deformation of the metal.
आज बाल बाली.
ना नीचे आ गया बहुत. तो ऊपर करो. अबे ऐसे मत देख. हाँ बेटर है आज वाला. इसको थोड़ा और ऊपर.
चला बीच में पहुंच गया मेरा.
हाँ तेरा बीच का पार्टीशन आ गया. You're not supposed to have middle partition.
अब यही रखेंगे. हो गया. आज तो बैठ गया बाद में.
Actually अच्छा लग रहा है बहुत. बट ये वाला थोड़ा अजीब लग रहा है. थोड़ा आगे आ रहा है वो. हाँ वो वाला.
ये तो छोटा वाला है.
हाँ वो मेरे में भी बहुत आता है. मेरे केस में भी. इसलिए मुझे पसंद नहीं.
और भाई.
For some small diameter tubes, the plug is not mounted on a mandrel, but is allowed to float in the tube. The tube is pointed, or swayed, to allow it to pass through the die.
Do you want to learn how to predict your own future through astrology? I have brought a free.
The drawing of wire is a similar cold process using dies. Copper wire often starts as coils of rod produced by hot rolling. To keep production continuous, successive coils are welded together. die reduces the rod's diameter and at the same time lengthens it. Each die may make a reduction of, say, 30%, producing very high local pressures and temperatures. This tends to cause heavy die wear, and dies are therefore made of very hard materials, such as tungsten carbide and diamond. Even so, lubrication is of the utmost importance to keep die wear to a minimum. In modern continuous machines, capstans pull the wire through a number of dies in succession. A 100 press are readily good extrusion. Extrusion produces an accurately shaped section with a good grain structure and a fine surface finish. Since the dies are readily changed, a wide variety of sections can be made in one extrusion press. Impact extrusion forms the hundreds of millions of tubes, which today contain everything from glue to toothpaste. Here, little slugs of aluminum are hit by a punch and flow over it to form a tube. Pressing and deep drawing of sheet are used to produce a great variety of shapes. Steel strip up to 73 inches wide can form a whole car roof at a single pressing. It is this ability of metal to flow which makes possible a multitude of manufacturing processes. Gear blanks are turned out in quantity by multiple forging presses. Wire is drawn down to a diameter of 1/1000th of an inch or less. Aluminum can be rolled to paper thinness with perfect accuracy. The knowledge and skill of metallurgists, mechanical engineers, production engineers, lubrication specialists, all combine to improve old methods and develop new ones. All for
And forming circulating cold, warm, heat with the board. Large group manufacturing process in which plastic deformation is used to change the shape of metal workpieces. Plastic deformation of permanent occurs when the metal is stretched beyond its yield point, that is from elastic to plastic range. Deformation results in the use of tools, usually called applying applied stresses that exceeds yield strength of the metal. The metal takes a shape determined by the geometry of the die. Various stresses are applied to plastically deform the metal. Various stresses are applied to plastically deform the metal. What exactly is metal forming? At its core, metal forming is like playing with a very stiff clay. So manufacturing process when you take metal piece and force it to change its shape without cutting it. force you to change. If you have the simple breakdown, force you to change, you try enough force, pressing, hammering, squeezing, that metal passes its yield point. That means it bends, it means stretches, and doesn't snap back to its original strip. That's called plastic deformation. You keep the mass, unlike cutting or drilling, you make where you make chips or loose material. Okay, let's basically understand what metal farming is. डायग्राम बनाना पड़ेगा because you apply enough force. The whole side effect is that for many metals, bending, squishing them actually makes the internal structure stronger. This is their grain structure, as you mentioned in your notes. Whoa, 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 whoa. Forming is a process obtained by metal forming and bulk deformation. Instead of starting with a solid chunk of metal, you start with real metal powder. Metal powder. The concept is you take the fine metal powder and put it in a model, squeeze it until high pressure and cooking. Why do you do that? It lets you make complex shapes that would be impossible. Squeezing in the powder into a shape, powder extrusion, pushing the powder through a die, powder injection molding, mixing powder in a binder and injecting it like a plastic. सही बात है अचानक से मारा ना इसलिए गांड फट स्ट्रेटनिंग साइजिंग बल्क ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन शीट फॉर्मिंग बेंडिंग ऑपरेशंस మామ చెప్పు చెప్పురా. చెప్పురా. రూమ్లోనే ఉన్నాను. ఇది ఫార్మింగ్, మెటల్ ఫార్మింగ్ చూసుకున్నా, వీడియోస్ చూసుకున్నా. వస్తాను నేను. నా 4th మాడ్యూల్ కంప్లీట్ చేస్తాను. నేను లంచ్ డిన్నర్ లోపల కంప్లీట్ చేసేస్తాను 4th మాడ్యూల్. తర్వాత ఎక్స్ట్రూజన్ కలిసి చేసేద్దాం, కిందకి వస్తాను అప్పటికి. సరేరా. 3rd మాడ్యూల్ చేయలేదురా, ఇంకా చేస్తాను. అది ఈజీ అనుకుంటున్నాను. 3rd మాడ్యూల్ ఈజీ కదా. 3rd మాడ్యూల్ వెల్డింగ్లే కదా నేను. ఎందుకంటే 3rd మాడ్యూల్ ఒకటి హీట్ బ్యాలెన్సింగ్ ఫ్యూజన్ వెల్డింగ్ అని ఒక టాపిక్ ఉంది, అవి లేదు. అంటే న్యూమెరికల్స్ అడగడంట కదా ఈసారి. అది దీనిది చెప్తాను. రోలింగ్ ఫోర్జింగ్లో న్యూమెరికల్ ఉన్నాయా బా, ఎక్స్ట్రూజన్ న్యూమెరికల్స్ ఉన్నాయి అంటే ఉన్నాయి. క్వశ్చన్ న్యూమెరికల్స్ ఉన్నాయి కానీ అడగడం ఏదో ఒకటి అడుగుతాడు నువ్వు అన్నట్టు. నెక్స్ట్ అయ్యేలో అడుగుతాడంట, వాడు చెప్పాడు కదా, ఇప్పుడు మెసేజ్ పెట్టాడంట కదా. థియరీ బెస్ట్ రా, కథలు రా ఇదంగా మస్తుగా. అందుకే నేను వీడియోలో చూస్తున్నాను నేను ఇందాక నుంచి అన్ని ఎలా చేస్తాడు ఫోర్జింగ్. అదే అదే కదా. అదే అదే నేను నోట్స్ రాసుకున్నా అందుకని. సరే సరే, అప్పటికల్లా కంప్లీట్ చేస్తా. 4th మాడ్యూల్ కంప్లీట్ చేస్తా, 5th కూడా మోస్ట్లీ ట్రై చేస్తా కంప్లీట్ చేయడానికి. సరేరా, బాయ్ బాయ్. Based on the chat 5, we discuss the primary operation of the bulk information to discuss the very first step of raw material, shaping raw material according to the chat. Cast inverts to shape such as bars, shapes. Starting point, we start with a huge rock. Huge rock, block of metal that just came out of the casting invert. Huge metal rock, huge metal rough block. But actually, cast industry shape bar, okay, I understood this part. Based on the nature of deformation, what's the material during the formation, first can also be classified into. Yes, it's a pointless, right? Concept of strain hardening. Straining of metals is subject to cold working process. The metal will, there are two types of working process. Concept of strain hardening. Straining of the metal occurs when subjected to cold working process. Metal will show more and more resistance for the action of load as cold working is continued. At some point, it may be very difficult to deform the metal. This phenomenon is referred to strain hardening effect. Straining of metal करेंगे सब्जेक्ट है टू और प्रोसेस है factors affecting metal forming क्लासिफिकेशन जब बताएगा उस टाइम पे बल्क डिफॉर्मेशन प्रोसेसेस शीट मेटल बल्क डिफॉर्मेशन प्रोसेसेस और it iron roast temperature and metal forming हाँ अभी आएगा ओके factors affecting metal forming temperature strain factors affecting metal forming strain temperature those are the metal strain rate friction major forces in metal structure heavy metal is not suitable heavy metal is not suitable for metal form unless they possess desired properties following parameters influence the mechanical workings of working processes. If the metal is heated to a higher temperature, the strength in the hardness are reduced and the ductility is enhanced. The metal becomes softer. The metal can be deformed easily. Strain rate. Strain rate. Strain hardening. Strain rate is at which rate the strain is induced in the metal. The strain rate increases, the metal becomes hard and flow stress increases. What is flow stress? Based on a document, here is a breakdown of flow stress, even though you are seeing term 9, but this is detailed definition after on page number 20, but what you need to know right now to understand page number 12. In simple terms, flow is the amount of stress you need to apply right now to keep the metal moving. The amount of force, flow stress, में the amount of flow जारी रखने के लिए it's not a constant number unlike yield strength, which is often treated as a single number which is very deformation stress. Flow stress change as you deform the metal. While it changes as you scratch or stress the metal, it undergoes strain hardening. It's harder. This means you have to apply more stress to keep it flowing than you started. Why is it on page number 9? Discusses. Document discusses strain rate, how fast you deform the metal. So, as the exceeded strain reaches the metal hardens. As the text states, as strain rate increases, the metal becomes hardened and flow stress increases. And if you try to deform the metal faster, it resists more, therefore, flow stress, the force required to keep it moving goes up. Formula is also there because ये पूछने वाला है. I guess so. Strain rate तो नहीं है. Average flow stress के बारे में कुछ लिखा हुआ है. I don't know, maybe पूछे ना पूछे. Only getting the tension. Bulk deformation processes. Secondary matter, but still there. Too many concepts to study. It's like a maze of things. Factors affecting metal forming. Temperature of the metal. If the metal is heated to high temperature, lower hardness, lower strength. Stress and strain rate. Strain rate is the rate at which the strain is induced in metal. Strain rate decreases, metal becomes harder and flow stress increases as the strain. As an increase in strain rate increases the strain hardening in the metal. Strain hardening एक phenomena है, as I already. Strain hardening is subjected to cold working process of the metal will show more resistance for the external load. मेटल का मतलब कि टेम्परेचर का मेटल का टेम्परेचर कितना है, स्ट्रेन रेट कितना है. Strain rate is the rate at which the strain is. As strain rate increases, the metal becomes hardened and low stress improves. और low stress क्या है? Low stress, right? Low करने के लिए कितना stress की जरूरत पड़ेगा? Why does it change? Because it does undergo strain hardening. जितना metal पे strain, जितना metal पे strain rate बढ़ेगा. Strain rate is related to the strain is induced. जितना strain rate बढ़ेगा उतना metal change करना. What? What is the actual nice line? No. If you try to deform the metal faster, it resists more. Therefore, the flow stress requires. In the metal working process, friction plays a very important role. Friction is the resistance offered by one surface against the other whenever there is a relative motion between two surfaces. More work is to be done in overcoming it. Friction alters the metal deformation pattern. Deformation tends to be non-uniform. Nature of forces. The types of forces. Nature of force. For example, in rolling, there is a direct compressive load or stress acting on the metal. The changes obtained in full working is appreciable. But अचानक से क्या है? There's no coherence, Pancho. Variation of property with respect to grain size. Pancho क्या है अचानक? Bulk deformation processes. Bulk deformation are generally characterized by significant deformations and massive shape changes. The term bulk, the term bulk deformation कहाँ से आया? It feels random, but it is actually looking like the classification chart you saw on page number 4 and 5. There is a logic. Slide starts by telling metal forming and developing two terms, bulk deformation and sheet, whatever. Okay, that's what I understand. I want to know the structure की structure हो रहा है. The slide starts by telling you metal forming is done by dividing two main terms, bulk deformation, sheet metal work, physics. Before explaining the term, a detailed explain the rules of the game to tell everyone. हाँ यार, बढ़िया. ठंडी लग रहा है. The slides start telling you metal forming you are into doing before explaining the terms, it takes a detour in the rules of the game that apply to everyone. Temperature, friction, speed, strain rate, etc. Zooming in on beam 1. Beam 12, now that you know the rules, slides are deep into bulk deformation. What is bulk deformation? Yeah. Okay. Bulk deformation process is generally characterized by significant deformations and massive shape changes. The term bulk describes the work parts that have low area to volume ratio. Starting work shapes for these including cylindrical billets, rectangular bars, etc. Bulk deformation, why is it always rolling? Based on the document, nature of work, bulk deformation, a group of metal processes characterized by significant deformation and active shape changes. The term bulk refers to the nature of work. In 7 o'clock, I should take a break. Try a little bit of metal forming process, not much. So it technically doesn't make sense for me to take a break. Here's a solid definition that you can write. Here's a category of metal forming process where workplace undergoes a massive change in shape by plastic deformation. उसमें क्या लिखा है? Is a group of metal forming processes characterized by significant deformation and massive shape changes. हाँ यही तो लिखा है. Bulk मतलब एक साथ बहुत सारा having bulk. Term bulk refers to the work parts having a low surface area to volume ratio. Means the object is chunky rather than thin or flat. Low ratio, it means the object has a lot of insides compared to its skin surface area. High ratio means object has a lot of skin compared to its inside. Bulk deformation process, rolling. Rolling is a compressive. It's a compressive process. This is a compressive process. This is a compressive process which The thickness of the slab or place is reduced by two opposing cylinders, cylindrical tools called rolls. The rolls rotate so that opposing cylindrical in forging, a workpiece is compressed between two opposing dies. In forging, forging is traditionally a hot working process, but many types of forging perform cold. This is a compression in which work metal is forced to flow through a die opening. Considerable amount of behavior of metals during the forming can be obtained from the stress strain curve. Material behavior during ये आने वाला है. Considerable insight into the metal. Da, 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 da. A typical stress strain graph. In metal forming, the plastic region is the primary interest. Because the material is plastically and permanently deformed. Stress coefficient and strain hardening exponent ये सब तो नहीं आने वाला. नहीं आ रहा ना. Draft in rolling reduction da. Manas. ये सब क्या है भाई? If we plot the plastic region of the true stress on a log scale, the result would be linear relationship no as strain hardening as shown in the figure 2. Now the relationship explain slide 80, 17 and 18. Bruh. क्या बहनचोद एग्जाम खत्म होने की lock plot lead put behind the graph. Normally if you plot stress strain you get a curved line. Curves are hard to do math with this slide. So that if you take a logarithmic of both sides, log scale the curved and change turns into a straight line. A straight line gives the famous flow curve equation. What parts of the graph? The straight line represents the plastic region. It shows that you stretch the material, it gets stronger. Shows that as you stretch the metal, it gets stronger. Steepness of the line N is the strain hardening exponent. Slope. A steeper line meaning the metal gets hard very quickly when you hit it. A flat line means it doesn't get much harder. Intercept. If you follow what? Follow the line until the strain equals 1. The strain value is equal to strength coefficient. Start of necking. Why you need this for example? This graph is a proof that behind formula you will also use to calculate. Now let us just draw this graph. If we plot the plastic region, now the relationship between true stress and true strain in the plastic region can be expressed in the following curve. Sigma is equal to K to the power n. following curve is generally valid for the metals, plastic, here only in cold working. Based on your document, the reason specifies the reason that specific flow curve equation is generally valid only on cold working comes down to strain hardening. Formula describes getting stronger. The equation mathematically describes strain hardening, also known as work hardening. It's as you deform the metal, the strength goes up. In cold working, that's exactly what happens. You bend a paper clip and it gets harder to bend further. Hot working erases the hardening. In hot working, the metal behaves differently. Self-healing recrystallization. ठीक है. Flow stress, average flow stress. Temperature at metal forming. Recrystallization ये सब की ज़रूरत नहीं है. Classification in metal forming processes. हाँ ये ज़रूरी है. Average flow stress is the average value of stress over the flow stress भी पढ़ना पड़ेगा क्या? Temperature at which the deformation takes place will be an important determinant factor. The temperature is relatively low with respect to the melting point of the strain hardening is a phenomenon which is where a phenomena whereby a ductile material becomes harder, stronger, and particularly deformed. Sometimes it's also called hard working, work hardening. Significant advantages of cold work cold forming. देखिए वीडियो देख लेते हैं कोई cold working पर.
Processes. I welcome you all in this presentation related with the subject fundamentals of the manufacturing processes. We have talked about the casting based processes, and today onwards we will be talking about the metal working processes for manufacturing of the metallic components. So here these are basically the plastic deformation based processes. Means in this group of the processes, basically the desired size and the shape is achieved by applying the force to the metal or the bulk material, so that required deformation is achieved, and the plastic deformation of the material results in the shape which is desired. Like say this is the strip, and if you want the strip of the smaller thickness but of the greater length, then by applying the processes like rolling or extrusion, this kind of shape can be changed, but this will primarily be based on the plastic deformation. So for achieving the plastic deformation, we need to apply the force so that the stresses acting on the metal are greater than the yield stress of the metal, which is being processed. So using the external forces, basically the metal is plastically deformed so that the desired size and shape is achieved in metal working based processes. So here the common names of the processes which fall in this category are like rolling, forging, extrusion, drawing. So these are the most common plastic deformation based processes which are used for the different purposes. For example, the drawing is used for making the wires and the bars, while others are these are used for making the complicated shapes. For uniform cross section, components of the uniform cross section along the length, both rolling and the extrusion based processes are used. So rolling is used primarily for the simpler shapes as compared to that of the extrusion. So as I said, the plastic deformation is needed in these processes in order to achieve the desired size and shape. So the factors which will be affecting the plastic deformation will eventually be affecting the efficiency of the processes. So like ease of the deformation for the metal in these processes is influenced by the yield strength.
हेलो हाँ 20 दे सकता है क्या 20 रुपए है हाँ हाँ मेरे पास है एक बार देख लेते हैं ऑनलाइन भेजू ना कैसा भी चल रहा है क्या कर रहा है कल एग्जाम है यार हमारा फैकल्टी लौड़ा पड़ेगा नंबर ही ना मैंने उस पे कर दिया खाना खाने जा रहा है खाना खाने जा रहा है खाना लेने जा रहा हूँ अच्छा हो गया नाइस आज कौन सा दिन है टोमेटो राइस बनेगा टोमेटो राइस क्या होता है भाई आज कौन सा दिन है अरे वो तो फ्राइडे फ्राइडे है क्या अच्छा चावल ही बनेगा मतलब सिर्फ कोई सब्जी वब्जी नहीं बनेगा अंडा और वो अबे वो तो वो लेजिट नहीं खाता बनता वो हाँ वो तो चावल अंडा क्या अबे अंडा अलग से देगा तो फिर भी चलेगा बे दिया देखो देगा अगर लाइक देखो चाहिए तो ले लेना अंडा अलग से देते हाँ देता है तो ठीक है क्योंकि मेरे को बता देना मेरा भी ले लेना आई गेस हाँ 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 वो भी कर सकता हूँ अबे मेरे को लगा कि सब्जी देगा तो मैं वो चावल खा लूंगा मेरा हाँ हाँ कोई नहीं कोई मेटल फॉर्मिंग
Of the metal and the ductility. For ensuring that metal is deformed plastically by application of the external force in these processes, the yield strength of the metal, it is good to have the lower yield strength of the metal and the high ductility. So if we have to deform the metal of the efficiency of the processes. So like ease of the deformation for the metal in these processes is influenced by the yield strength of the metal and the ductility. For ensuring that metal is deformed plastically by application of the external force in these processes, the yield strength of the metal, it is good to have the lower yield strength of the metal and the high ductility. So if we have to deform the metal of the high yield strength and the low ductility, then the high forces will be needed, high power consumption will be there in order to achieve the deformation. And if the ductility is very limited, then it may not be possible also to achieve the plastic deformation. Now microscopically the plastic deformation microscopically is achieved through the two mechanisms. These are called slip and the twinning.
ये कहाँ से आया भाई स्लिप एंड ट्विनिंग हार्ड वर्किंग कोल्ड वर्किंग कैरेक्टराइजेशन डिफरेंस हो गया और ये पॉप रे
So these are based on the atomic movement, the direction of the force or application of the force. So the force is applied to cause the plastic deformation. So as per the direction in which force is being applied, the metal will be flowing to facilitate the plastic deformation. So when the metal flows during the plastic deformation, the crystals will be orienting
Damn, we got a study material. This is probably think about all the questions that we asked. I feel a little overwhelmed right now. I think I need to stop studying at this point. I'll come back a little later.